about it and answer your questions about it. We do have a quarterly newsletter that is both electronic and snail mail. And then we also invite people to discover what way they'd like to contribute or be involved in this, including a visit to Sri Lanka. I know people have taken Ari up on his offer, and it's truly magnificent. I haven't yet been able to do that. I'm trying to organize a group to go next year. The address that's shown here is Steve West's home. There's no professional staff. There's no overhead. Virtually 100% of what we do goes to Sri Lanka. There's a phone number, a fax number, there's a website. There's also our email address was left off of here. It's SUSA for Sarvodaya USA at EROLS.com if you care if you're electronic. If you'd like to do any one of the 6 things or something else, scribble your name and address and phone number at the bottom and give it to myself or Steve after the meeting. We've also, this last weekend, we had a meeting of all of our volunteers. There's a fellow from, where in Colorado? Colorado Springs? Or? Yeah. He has a passionate interest in the quality of life for children. And as you can imagine, with 4 million people, and a number of them are children, probably, if the statistics are normal, about 40%. He donated 1,000 of these books to Sarvodaya at no cost to us, and we offer them as a way of saying thank you for any financial contributions we got. We've got 20 of these here today. It's a book about children throughout the world. It's not something about our children in Sri Lanka, but it's our way of saying thank you if you want to contribute something. So we have some of these here today. If you have any questions about what we're doing here in the U.S., I'd be happy to answer them, or I'd be happy to sit down and turn it over to end the meeting and let you talk to Steve West, who's right in front of me, Ari, Vinya, anybody. So, yes.
I just wanted to say I'm a partner in a couple of modest enterprises here in New York, and based on what I've heard and meeting Ari and being part of the Season for Nonviolence and knowing about the work that has been going on here, I want to just say that I'm going to do what I can to make a contribution from these 2 small companies. They're small, it can't be big, but I want to definitely give something to your cause.
Great.
Sure.
We'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
And that goes for everybody else. And really, thank you for coming. I hope you were as moved as I've been with Ari. And thank you, Ari, for sharing yourself with us.
Friends visit from afar, is this not indeed an incomparable pleasure? And we have that with Ari and his son. And then, of course, we can remember when Solzhenitsyn's remarks came into this very room, and the quote was, "The salvation of mankind lies only in making everything the concern of all." And I think those are wonderful parting words. We want to thank Ari, and we expect his return. And while his feet are planted firmly in Sri Lanka, we know his eyes keep us under surveillance. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today we are on location at the National Arts Club here at Gramercy Park, and we are seated with Dr. Ariyaratne, who is here from Sri Lanka, who is doing extraordinary work at rebuilding his country. Unlike anyone else, he has taken the bull by the horns. He is rebuilding literally thousands and thousands of villages from the bottom up, both physically, infrastructure, and spiritually. He and his son and his family in general are helping this extraordinary movement, and they are seeking help, assistance on every level from people worldwide. We're very glad that you're with us today.
I'm happy to meet you.
Good, it's really excellent. As well, I should say that for the Season for Nonviolence commemorating Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, Dr. Ariyaratne was here to deliver a keynote address at the United Nations just this week. So if you would please just tell us when it is that you started this entire movement.
In 1950s, middle 50s.
Is that so?
Right.
And
when I was a teacher, with my students, I thought we should take education beyond the school. So we went into rural areas where poorest and the most powerless people live. And we started empowering them in every respect.
And in what ways did you do that?
Economically, socially, politically, spiritually, culturally, to empower them. And then, of course, 41 years now, nearly 12,000 villages are on their path to awakening.
12,000.
Almost half the villages in Sri Lanka.
Now, how is it that you have managed to empower them economically?
First, teach them self-reliance, community participation, importance of satisfying basic human needs, and the fact that they all can save money. And when their savings are pulled together, they can give those monies in credit. So savings and credit and micro-enterprises. Then when their capital, which they have pulled together, increases, say if it increases to $1 million rupees, they can do work of 10 million, 10 times that.
Is that so?
Because you give 100% repayment rate, you give again, you start your own micro-enterprises, income generating projects like that.
And this
so that way empower them economically. Yeah.
So in a sense through leverage.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And you have found that over these 40 plus years,
Yes.
this has really taken root in
Right.
Sri Lanka,
Right.
in the villages,
Right.
and they've been able
the economic empowerment programs have been effective from 1987. Before that, we prepared them socially, before we got into the economic sector. Now, over 3,000 villages are on the road to economic self-sufficiency.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Now, when it comes to medical assistance,
Yeah.
what have you provided in that domain?
First, we emphasize on community health, primary health care, because prevention is better than cure. So, the primary health care, giving them clean waters, good housing, balanced nutrition, prenatal and postnatal care. When these things are done, naturally the health conditions of the people improve.
Sure.
And then
Not
of
to mention they're feeling loved and cared
Yes.
for.
Then the health education
Yes.
in a big way. Then of course when there are certain cases where you have to get help from outside, from hospitals and medical specialists, we do that.
Yes.
But and also in our development programs, we don't leave out anybody. If there are deaf children in a village, we have deaf schools we have started. If they are blind, we have programs for the blind.
Now, is your...
Yeah.
Of course, you have in Sri Lanka traditional medicine, acupuncture being
Right,
one of
right,
the
right,
forms
right.
that I personally happen to know about.
Right.
Are you employing traditional medicine as
We are
well
using a lot of
as
Ayurveda.
allopathic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Ayurveda medicine is used, and of course modern medicine too. Both are used.
I see,
Yeah.
I see. This is fabulous, and
Yeah.
you're really reaching... Are there any villages that seemed not to have responded over the past 40-some-odd years? And if so, why?
Well, they feel that we are close to them, and we love them,
Yes.
and we expect nothing in return. And we are not doing party or power politics or trying to, we are making a sacrifice, they know it. Therefore they cooperate with us. Of course we need a lot of resources to do this work, and we don't have. But we are helped by a lot of people who see our work and
Sure.
experience our work. and-
By people and by God, no doubt. How is it that you do fund this?
Well, mostly it is based on self-reliance and our physical labor being gifted, or our knowledge. Now I am working as a volunteer for the last 40 years. So like that, there are lots of people who volunteer their time, effort and their skills. Then there are certain organizations who help us financially. And there are individuals who send donations. Then there are people who adopt a village, for example, and send a certain amount of money to help that village to carry on with their program. So village to village link up. Then certain person say, I would like to adopt a poor family and help that family. So there are such programs. Then there are others who believe that they should take over bigger responsibilities. They would take a whole district and say, we will fund that district. So out of the 30 districts, we have 7 districts which are funded by certain organizations.
Excellent.
Yeah, but we still need 21 districts still to be funded.
In Sri Lanka
In
itself?
Sri Lanka itself.
In order to match your goal,
Right.
to meet your goal.
Right. So we have,
How close are you to fulfilling that?
well, we need about $600,000 a year to run the workers and the centers. We have about 400 centers around the country, and over 1,200 who are working. So they have to sustain.
Yes.
So about 50% we earn by handicrafts and things like that.
I see.
Printing press, but 50% we need. So we have a shortage of about $600,000 a year to keep this gigantic thing going. But it's nothing compared to it's very low cost.
Very low cost. It's about
When 7
1
million,
minute's worth of the military budget of the United States of America.
when 7 million people participate in something, and our needs are maybe $600,000 a year,
Yes.
it's
It's an
nothing.
incredible investment,
Few cents per
actually.
person.
Yeah. And is the particular spiritual orientation Buddhist in nature?
Well, our main inspiration was Buddhism, Buddha's teachings, but ours is a non-sectarian organization. Buddhists, Christians, Hindus, Muslims,
Everybody
everybody work
participates.
together. Yeah.
And does that work?
It works very well,
Yeah.
interfaith.
I'm not surprised,
Yeah.
but many would be.
works.
Yeah. So what is your next step now? You're raising money in the United States, but also spreading the word about the work that
I'm
you're doing.
spreading the word, and those who are kind enough to support, it's most welcome. And then I go
I,
home.
for one. And then you go home. Right, absolutely. Well, you have now spread out from Sri Lanka, and your son was saying that you're also,
Right.
you've reached out to a number of other countries.
Yeah, from over 40 countries, young people have come to us, worked with us, gone back and started various programs, similar programs.
Right.
And out of them, some countries under the name Sarvodaya itself, now we have Sarvodaya USA, Sarvodaya Susa, which has a web page and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
Then we have a Sarvodaya support group in UK. Then we have a Sarvodaya Germany,
Now,
Sarvodaya
are those primarily
Netherlands.
fundraising functions? Because certainly
Three
the people...
functions: fundraising,
Yeah.
then sending people there, providing information, and in their own countries trying to implement some of these principles.
Yes, I
Yes.
see. And so the work of Gandhi and King are actually very much, as I understand,
we
in
are in-
harmony
Yeah.
with the work of
We
your
are the same
organization.
movement, same
Same movement, right. I have a
Same
feeling that you're
environment.
actually continuing the legacy of Gandhi and King as well in your own
Right,
life. I mean, you have been on the line, as it were, and
Yes.
a target for many. In fact, where do you stand relative to the Sri Lankan government? It's almost
We are
as though
very
you're
independent.
sandwiched in between.
We are very independent. The government knows, next to the government, we are the largest body doing the largest amount of development, welfare and other work. But we strictly keep out of party and power politics. We empower the people at the bottom so that the democracy can reach at the grassroots. In other words, we believe in grassroots, participatory democracy and communication technology linking them together. We believe that is the road to peace. That is spiritual networking and communication networking through communication technology. Then small
So you're
groups
using the
of
best of the West, if you will,
and, right,
as well
best
as the wisdom
best
of the East.
Yeah, absolutely right.
This is extraordinary. One of the subjects on our show, Doctor, is the idea of compassion in action,
Right.
of taking one's spiritual awareness
Right.
and translating it into service in the world.
Right.
That is really what the
Right.
game seems about.
Right, right.
You are doing this
The
on
world has no future unless compassion is there in the heart of the vast majority of people. A critical mass of people should live as symbols of love. That is one. Second, when you have love in your heart, you always will help somebody. Third, we have to organize ourselves as small communities around the world. This planet should organize the 2 million villagers and other communities as small communities where political, social and economic empowerment is there.
Yes.
Then we have to network them, both spiritually and scientifically.
Yes.
Then
And
we have a future for non-violence and peace.
it's really acting locally and thinking globally,
Right.
and it's working.
It's working.
You have provided us with a model of this.
Right.
And listen, I want to really thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You must come and visit us.
I would love to. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
And you may be seeing me there because I
Right.
want to contribute
Yes.
to your wonderful
Please
work.
do come.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Absolutely.
All the best.
Thanks. Just in closing, if you would just say, what would you like to communicate most to our audience in New York and across the country? What would you like us Americans to most know in our hearts?
I would tell that try to discover yourself. Each one of you has a great potential to transform yourself and your world. Be a part of that transformation for a non-violent, peaceful and happier world where nobody would be hungry and nobody would be angry. Thank you. I wish you all the best.
God bless.
Are you all right?
Here, let me help you.
Did I give you
That
my
was
card?
beautiful. Thank you. What? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I will be contacting you. Absolutely. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Did you want to say something else?
Now we are seated with Dr. Ariyaratne's son, Vinya, who is been appointed to carry on the legacy, to carry on the tradition, having begun in Sri Lanka and carrying on actually at this point worldwide. They're doing extraordinary work, working on a local level, a village level, of improving the lives and the lot of people everywhere in Sri Lanka, from providing food, water, medicine, healing, and even methods of recreating happiness for themselves. So we want to thank you so much, first of all, for your work and for coming to visit us in this country. Absolutely. Now, your own background is what?
Well, I am trained as a physician and I'm specializing in the field of public health.
I see. Well, this is a perfect training for being your father's son.
That's right. I opted for it because I was brought up in the village development work, and I had an inclination towards community work. So I saw the suffering of the people, when I visited with my father when I was growing up, and then when I got my professional training as a physician, I thought that it's right that I should take on the community medicine side of it, or the preventive medicine side of it. So
Yes.
that's how I opted for public health.
Now, when you were growing up and as your father's son, were you feeling that you wanted to do this kind of community work from the beginning, or is that something you grew into through your own reflection? How would you
I think
assess that?
it's a combination of all, I must say.
yeah.
Of course, I grew up within the environment created by the movement, then I was exposed to appalling conditions in the country, so I saw how the majority of our people live and what we could do to change their lives, so that motivated very much. So then of course as I grew up, then I was exposed to other cultures, other teachings and all that, then it reinforced me that it's so valuable to focus on spiritual aspects as well, and also what my father was doing was the correct thing, which is helping the people to help themselves, building their capacity rather than doling out anything. So I
As they
started
say, it's
believing-
much better to give a fishing rod than
Right.
giving a fish.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So then it was very much on my own will that I opted to take on the same line, and so hopefully I'll be continuing on the same path, and with a large number of other leaders who have been who have blossomed as a result of this movement, and they are working with me, and we are together taking this forward.
Are you receiving a fair amount of support from the Sri Lankan people?
Oh yes, very much so. In fact, being the largest people's movement in Sri Lanka, we do get lot of goodwill, not necessarily financial support, but we generate lot of goodwill and voluntary contributions. And by and large, I think we generate maybe 10 times more than our cash budget. So that is, in terms of money, at least that is.
If we could only translate goodwill into dollars or rupees,
That's right. That's right.
the time will come.
That's right. Yes.
Now, I have a difficult question.
Yes.
Sri Lanka is a very old culture.
Right.
It's been around. It's an ancient Buddhist culture.
Right.
For thousands of years,
Yeah.
the people have been self-sustaining.
Right.
Certainly, there's always, perhaps not say great wealth
Right.
among all,
Right.
but certainly enough.
Right.
Good food, good
That's
water,
right.
good
Yeah.
medicine,
Right.
and good spirits
Right.
to sustain people over time generationally.
Right.
What is your understanding of what it is that has
Yes.
happened
Yes.
in the last
Yeah.
30, 20, 50 years
Yeah.
that has, in a sense, caused a degeneration where the poverty has, in a sense, hit new levels that would virtually require
Yes.
a kind of movement like
Right.
your family
Right.
has begun?
Right. You are correct when you say that Sri Lanka has been a Buddhist civilization, and where the communities were self-sustaining and they were self-sufficient and they had enough resources to satisfy their needs. As you know, we were under the colonial rule for about 400 years, little over 400 years.
British.
First it was the Portuguese, but they could not
Sustain it.
colonize the whole country. Then the Dutch and the British ruled it for 400 years.
Yes.
Now, of course, the traditional systems that we had, the Buddhist governance system, the Buddhist civilization, predominantly Buddhist civilization, got disturbed as a process of colonization. So that is partly the reason why we, that's where it started, I must say.
Yes.
And then there were also a lot of positive forces to combat these changes, and there were a lot of freedom struggles that had taken place during
Ensued
the course of
therefrom.
Yes, and try to revive and retain these values. But by the time we got independence in 1948, the whole economic system had changed. The self-sufficient village economy that you mentioned had been totally destroyed and replaced with the export-oriented economy, where our main income was exporting tea. Most of the plantations were converted to tea plantations or rubber plantations or other crops which were exported to other countries. So the whole economy was based on exports. And then the people who inherited governance from the British after independence continued in the same path. They did not try to revert back to our original systems of governance, which are based on indigenous values and culture and perhaps Buddhist economy.
Or even your original economy, right?
Exactly. So then it got worse. And then, of course, with the party political system coming into the picture, there was the society was divided. So there was so much hatred and political turmoil that pursued, and then ethnic tensions also arose as a result, mainly originating from political differences. So then we ended up where we are now in terms of a lot of poverty, a lot of disunity. So through the Sarvodaya movement, we are trying to revive again those values.
Revive and restore.
Exactly.
Yes. I wanted to get that. Thank you very much for that that history, succinct as it was.
Right.
Because what it shows, in a sense, is that the indigenous people of Sri Lanka had a means of livelihood and of sustaining and developing a culture according to their own original values, if you will.
Yes.
And when there was an interruption to that system, it went askew, astray, and awry.
That's right.
And
Exactly.
you are now, in a sense, seeking to restore, and in fact are successfully restoring the way of life. Not, let's say, 100% back to the way it was. Because
No, actually, we are creating something better.
Yeah, I was just about to say. There's like a new synthesis,
exactly,
I hear.
Yeah.
Speak
Because
to that, if you
now,
would.
of course, the progress has been. Of course, we have made a lot of progress in terms of science and technology. So we are not depriving our communities of these achievements of science. So it is a unique effort where through Sarvodaya we are trying to combine spiritual aspects, indigenous values, culture with modern science. So that's why you see when you go to our programs, and technology. So that's why when you go to our villages, you will see the best technology that's appropriate to that particular situation or the village we use. As long as village people can sustain that technology, they can look after that technology.
Yes.
And that is affordable to them. And that satisfies their own needs.
Excellent.
So then you can see how we try to help people to go for alternative energy systems, for example, like solar, which they invest, they maintain, and things like that. So we are actually partly true, we are trying to revive the value system, but in a much more, perhaps, postmodern way.
Right, sure. Why not?
Yes.
Make the best of all worlds,
Correct.
With the West comes some dark and some light.
Yes.
Take the best, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. As a physician, no doubt you're sensitive to the indigenous medicine that grew and has been part of Sri Lankan civilization for a long time.
Yes.
What is it?
Yeah.
How would you identify it?
Yeah.
And how is it managing to stay part of the current medical systems that you are bringing forth in the various villages you're working in?
In Sri Lanka, we are actually quite lucky to have a mentality among the public where the indigenous traditional medical system, which includes Ayurveda system, coexists with the Western medical system. Still a large proportion of the population, perhaps even 50% of the population, depend on indigenous systems of medicine.
50%?
Of course, yeah. And for certain types of illnesses, they even prefer the traditional or the
There's
Ayurvedic
a belief system
medicine.
that goes with it. And
because it's a way of life. It's not really a medical system. So
as separate from life, the way we have it here.
Correct. So we in our country, these systems have coexisted. Of course, now with a lot of commercialization coming in, the private practice coming in, the Western medical system is dominating. So that is a recent phenomenon. And people are also being conditioned by all kinds of commercials and all these advertisements and all that. Therefore,
see how it happens?
Yes.
So this is how it happens.
Exactly.
Right?
And people also think that the health is a commodity that can be bought in the market. So this mindset is really bad for the society, because then people think that expensive medicines are always the best, and so even the poor people will crave for these things. So what we are trying to do is we have a lot of educational programs, and that's where I am very much involved from my training as a public health person.
Sure.
So we are trying to educate people on a lot of preventive aspects, and also even about drugs we are educating. It's not always necessary to take this type of expensive medicines. There are a lot of things that
when you say drugs, you mean pharmaceutical drugs.
That's right. We also have programs for the other types of drugs, the addictive drugs.
Sure.
We also have a very big program to keep young people away from drugs, and also we have the best program to rehabilitate the so-called addicts to these drugs, young people. And we have a very unique program where we combine meditation, spiritual aspects into rehabilitation.
Beautiful.
So we are trying to somehow make a balance, of these healing systems as well. And we also encourage in the villages that we work for them to grow herbal gardens, and they maintain herbal gardens for certain ailments. They use them. So our movement do not reject either the Western medical system or the traditional system, but we harmonize both. And then help the people.
There's a level on which they're not harmonizable.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
in
yeah.
reality, because
Yeah.
as you were speaking about making medicine into some kind of commodity
Yes.
that you can buy health from the store,
Yes.
the Ayurvedic
Yeah.
and the Chinese medical, the indigenous
Yeah.
medical
Yeah.
understanding
Yes.
is that health is largely a result of one's spiritual outlook.
Right.
And
Right.
therefore,
Right.
it cannot be realized, if you
Yes,
will,
yes,
with a
yes.
pill.
Yeah,
No
that's
matter
right.
how many pills you take or
That's
how
right.
high quality
Yeah.
the pill is.
That's right.
And therefore,
Yeah.
it's an entire part of life, like a
Exactly.
tapestry.
Yes,
You
yes,
cannot take
yeah.
one strand.
No.
So from that point of view, they're not harmonizable. On the other, say, more superficial level,
Yes.
there are things that allopathic medicine does provide
Yes. Yes.
that is
Certainly.
very, very, very useful.
Yeah, it is to that extent I say harmonize. It's not harmonizing in the sense that you try to merge two systems. That's not what I mean.
Not in the cosmic sense.
Yeah,
Right.
but because these systems exist, what we mean by harmonizing is that you take the best out of any system that is appropriate to your situation. So to that extent we harmonize. And also, as you said, it's very much to do with your lifestyles and your spirituality. So we are influencing lifestyles. So that's the ideal of our movement, where we try to eliminate poverty, but at the same time not to achieve affluence. So no poverty, no affluence society is the goal of our movement.
I see. Interesting. I see. Okay. And yet people are certainly feeling prosperous.
Oh yeah, because
they're
their
feeling-
basic needs are met.
Now, how many villages altogether, Vinya, have you reached over
Well,
the past
yes,
40 years?
in Sri Lanka we have a total of over 24,000 villages, and we are nearly reaching 12,000 villages right now. So if we think that if we can reach say 50% of the villages, then we have created the critical mass required for the villages to develop. So it's not that we'll be working directly in all the villages in Sri Lanka, but the villages that we have developed the capacity in will give the leadership to the surrounding villages, and
Sure.
hopefully these ideals will be spread across the country, and all the villages in Sri Lanka will be able to develop and meet the needs of their communities through self-sufficiency.
It's beautiful work that you're doing. It's beautiful work, and I deeply commend you, your family, and everyone involved with the level of spiritual and physical work that you're doing. It's truly translating the highest values and ideals we have as humans into action where it needs to be.
Thank you very much, and we are very much inspired by your blessings and your encouragement of our work. Thank you.
Absolutely. Over the years, I'm sure we'll be dealing with you again.
Yes,
and we'll
we
get
look
some
forward
updates.
to, and we would like to have you visiting us and our friends in
good.
US visiting and seeing for yourselves what we are
Sure.
doing in Sri Lanka.
Well, we may come and
Yeah.
cover it for the TV show, so more
Oh, good,
Americans can
good,
see.
yes.
I just need to raise some funding, and
Good.
I'll be there.
Please, you are most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vinya.
Thanks.
This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.